Good evening, sweetheart. It's Maggie. Come sit with me. Let's make this night a gentler one. Not a loud one, just a small, steady memory that decided to follow me home from the morning. There, the lamp always knows how to open the night. A small circle of gold on the table, spreading slowly, like a thought gathering its courage. I've been holding on to a memory since breakfast, not tightly, just the way you hold the sleeve of an old sweater when you're not ready to fold it away. It kept drifting back throughout the day, in the grocery aisle, while waiting at the crosswalk, even when I tried to distract myself by wiping the counter for the third time. At 63, wiping counters is less about cleaning and more about thinking with your hands. I brewed some lavender tea tonight, not because I planned to, but because I opened the cabinet and the lavender box was leaning slightly forward, as if volunteering. At my age, when something volunteers, you let it. The rain has been polite today, not tapping for attention, just letting itself exist behind the window, and the quiet that comes after a polite rain. It's the sort of quiet that opens a door inside you that you didn't realize was closed. Lily felt it too. She kept following me around the house with that look dogs get when they're trying to read your thoughts. Honestly, half the time she reads me better than people do. This morning, December 3rd, started with one of those pale Seattle sunrises that doesn't exactly rise so much as appear, like someone nudged the dimmer switch a little higher. I remember standing by the window, my hands around a still warm cup, watching the light touch the fence, then the old stepping stones, then the bench under the maple tree. And that's when it happened. That memory with the quiet shape, the kind that doesn't walk in, it simply arrives. A morning from years ago, 2008, I think, when the light looked almost the same, except the house felt fuller, and the kitchen smelled like toasted bread and somebody humming off key. Not sad, just warm. I wasn't trying to remember. Memories don't wait for permission. They're like the steam rising from a cup, forming a shape only long enough for you to feel something before it disappears. Today, that memory rose soft, not sharp, not heavy, just enough to place a small thumbprint on the day. I kept it with me quietly. I let it sit behind everything I did. Even when I walked to the mailbox, I could feel it in the air. That little echo of another December morning, one that carried laughter and the sound of him opening the stubborn back door like it was a polite negotiation. He used to say, "Maggie, this door isn't stuck. It's thinking." And then he'd give it that gentle nudge that only he could get away with. I swear the door respected him more than it ever respected me. These days, when the door sticks, I talk to it. Maybe that's my version of negotiating. But I wasn't sad this morning. Isn't that strange? A memory like that. And not sadness, but something rounder, like the smooth stone you keep in your pocket for reasons you never say out loud. All day I carried that stone-shaped feeling, turning it over in my mind without examining it too closely. Some feelings prefer soft edges. When I sat down now, under this lamp, with Lily already curled in her chosen spot, as if she arrived 10 minutes before I did, the memory felt ready to be set down on the table, next to the cup, next to the soft light, not spoken as a story, but held like a warm object in the palms of the night. Sometimes the day brings you something that you're not meant to solve, only to witness. And that was this morning's gift. A small piece of 2008, wrapped in the quiet shape of a December dawn. I leaned against the window for a moment earlier, letting the glass cool my forehead. It's funny how glass remembers the weather better than we do. I could feel the rain's leftover chill, even though the storm had already moved on. And the memory settled there beside me, not demanding attention, not pulling at me, just existing, as if to say, this part of you is still warm. I sometimes think memories come back when the present moment becomes gentle enough to hold them without spilling. And tonight, this room, this lamp, this small circle of light, it feels steady enough to let an old memory sit here without breaking the silence. I'm not afraid of memories anymore. When you've lived long enough, you learn that not every echo hurts. Some just want to lean quietly against your shoulder for a few minutes before they go. It's strange to realize how versions of yourself live inside you at once. The woman who stood in this kitchen in 2008 is different from the woman sitting here now. Yet somehow we're holding the same cup, watching the same kind of rain, under the same gentle lamp. And I don't mind sharing the moment with her. Sometimes growing older feels like collecting small apartments inside your own heart, each one holding a season of your life with its own window, its own light, its own quiet. Tonight, the December 2008 apartment cracked open its door again. I didn't walk in. I just looked through the doorway and let the soft light fall across my feet. I'm learning, slowly, that not all remembering is longing. Some remembering is simply visiting. And tonight, I'm visiting the version of myself who laughed at off-key humming, who wiped counters for reasons other than thinking, who never guessed how many quiet, steady nights the future would require. If you were here, you might ask, why this memory, Maggie? Why today? And the truth is, some memories return because the air finally feels gentle enough to hold them. This morning's light had that gentleness, and tonight's lamp carries the same softness, like the day has curled itself around me from both ends. Outside, the streetlight is gathering the drizzle into a silver halo. Seattle loves its halos. They hover around everything if you catch the light at the right angle. I think memories have halos too. The older they get, the softer their edges shine. And the one from this morning, the one from 2008, still has a small halo that only shows up in quiet December evenings. So here we are again, you, me, the lamp, the rain, and a memory that feels like it decided to stay for tea. Not to make me ache, not to test me, just to sit beside me long enough for the night to understand its shape. The evening settled earlier than usual today, almost as if the light didn't want to argue with December. I suppose I understand. I didn't want to argue with the day either. The little circle of light from my lamp grew slowly, the way warm things do, not rushing, not insisting, just extending its hand across the room. and there was something comforting about the way it touched the wall, like someone smoothing out the corner of a blanket before sitting down. You know, I've always believed light has manners if you give it space. If only some people learned from it. There's chamomile in my cup again tonight. I wasn't planning on it, but the moment I opened the cupboard, my hand reached for it, the way a memory reaches for its own name. Maybe comfort chooses us before we choose it. I sat down, letting my bones make peace with the chair, and the room exhaled around me. Perhaps it was the radiator easing on, or the old oak floor doing its nightly shift, but it almost felt like the house was saying, "All right, Maggie, let's rest now." I like when the house speaks first. It saves me from having to come up with something wise to say. My fingers curled around the cup, and the warmth traveled up my wrists in a slow, thoughtful line. Comfort never rushes. It drifts. It tests the air. It learns the shape of your evening before it settles in. Tonight, comfort feels like a quiet companion, not loud, not eager, just willing to sit with me without asking me to explain anything. The wind moved past the house a few moments ago, gentle, nothing like the storms we had last week. This wind has a softer personality. If winds could knit, this one would be making scarves for all the neighborhood pine trees. It brushed the branches outside my window, and for a heartbeat, I felt something like recognition, as if the breeze had its own memory of all the winters I've sat in this very spot. Sometimes comfort feels like continuity, like finding yourself in the same place, with the same lamp, on the same kind of rainy night, and still feeling surprised by how the quiet holds you. I've never been afraid of quiet. Loneliness, yes. That one knows where my soft spots live. But quiet is a companion I've known long enough to let it speak when it wants to. Tonight, it says very little. Just stay. And that's enough. Earlier, I found an old note tucked inside the kitchen drawer. It wasn't anything important, just a grocery reminder from years ago. Eggs, oats, that tea Maggie hates but buys anyway. He wrote that last line. He always teased me about buying teas I never drank. Even now, the note made me laugh under my breath. Not because it was funny, but because it was gentle. Memories age well when they're treated kindly. When I sat back down after finding it, I felt this subtle shift inside me, like a drawer closing softly or a page turning itself. Not sadness, not longing, just an understanding that comfort can come from things that used to hurt. Maybe that's what being 63 feels like. Realizing the heart is an entire landscape, not a single wound. Lily stretched a moment ago, her old joints giving their little nightly commentary. She looked up at me with those half-sleep eyes dogs get when they're pretending not to need attention. I gave her a little scratch on the ear, and she melted right back into the rug, as if gravity had claimed her personally. I envy her ability to relax so completely. If I ever tried lying on the floor like that, someone would have to call for help, and possibly a small crane. The steam rose again from my cup, thin lines twisting upward, almost shy. I watched it drift, and I thought about how comfort has never been loud in my life. It always comes quietly, like steam or dusk, or a small memory that finds a soft place to land. A few minutes ago, the rain grew heavier, not dramatic, just a deeper rhythm against the window. It's a sound that always reminds me of my mother's kitchen in 1972, when the stove made its own little hum and the world felt safe in ways I didn't understand yet. Funny how safety is something you often don't recognize until life teaches you its absence. At 63, I don't need safety to be big. A warm cup, a soft lamp, a dog sighing at my feet. Sometimes those are enough to rebuild a whole night. I leaned my head back a little, letting the light fall across my face, and I felt something shift, very small but unmistakable. A thought forming, a memory breathing, a comfort returning. It wasn't joy, not exactly. Joy tends to arrive wearing brighter shoes. This was something quieter, like finding a forgotten scarf, still holding the warmth of the last winter you wore it. Comfort doesn't need to announce itself. It just steps inside and waits for you to notice. And tonight, I noticed, not in a grand cinematic way, just in the gentle way you realize your shoulders have lowered without your permission. Sometimes the body knows when the heart has decided to rest. The lamp brightened slightly, as if agreeing with me. Or maybe it flickered, This old lamp has moods of its own. If it ever leaves me, I'll take it personally. There is something sacred about the way comfort shapes an evening. It smooths the sharp edges. It slows the rushing parts. It fills the room with the kind of quiet that doesn't ask you to fix anything. Tonight, that's the quiet I'm sitting in. A quiet that lets the rain speak, lets the steam wander, lets the house settle, lets the heart breathe. A quiet that reminds me I am allowed to soften too. Comfort came early tonight, and I think I'll let it stay. There's something almost thoughtful about the way the rain moves tonight. Not hurried, not shy, just steady enough to feel like it's keeping the house company. I shifted the lamp a little closer a moment ago, and the glow pushed back the shadows, the way a soft memory pushes back the kind of loneliness that doesn't announce itself. It just quietly arrives. Earlier today, I found one of my old scarves tucked behind a drawer, the blue one with little silver threads that never quite stayed in place. When I unrolled it, a few threads slipped off again. At 63, I relate to that more than I should. I draped it over the edge of the chair anyway, not to wear, just to let it exist in the light a bit. Some fabrics deserve a second chance at being seen. The house shifted again, that familiar sound, like someone clearing their throat politely in the corner of the room. Old houses have manners. They interrupt only when they need to. I brushed my thumb across the rim of my cup, and the warmth surprised me, the way small comforts always do when we're not paying attention. A breeze pushed against the window a few minutes ago, and for a moment it felt like the wind stopped to listen, as if it paused right there at the frame of the glass, trying to remember something important and failing in the softest way. It reminded me, not sharply, just with a soft tap on the shoulder, of a December many years ago, somewhere around 2008, the year the neighborhood power went out for 6 hours, and everyone gathered outside with flashlights and impatience. Frank tried to fix the street transformer with a broom handle. The transformer survived. The broom did not. Funny how memories from the coldest nights are the ones that make the heart feel warmest later. Tonight, though, the quiet feels different. Not empty, just settled, like the house has accepted the rain's company and no longer needs to make its own noise. Lily hasn't moved much. That she has that heavy, trusting sleep dog dogs seem to master better than we do. When she sighs like that, it feels like the room exhales with her. There was a moment earlier tonight when I reached for the blanket and accidentally caught the corner of it under my elbow. Almost spilled my tea. Almost. At my age, almost counts as a victory. But small victories matter. They accumulate the way quiet evenings accumulate, softly, without needing applause. The rain eased up for a moment, and the absence of sound felt like a question the night was asking me. Not one I could answer, but one I could sit beside. I leaned back in the chair, its gentle ache matching my own, and watched the faint